because that's the attitude that takes you to the top, right? So we don't really have this motivation to actually sit down and tackle the stuff that we need to, right? We want to sit there and do something entertaining, but that's just not how the world works. We need to actually sometimes do stuff that's boring and realize that ultimately that's what pays off in the end, not just sitting there in our bed doom scrolling. I don't have a hatred for that person, no. I don't hate him.
Yeah, so it's probably just
I just want to
motivation.
I want to do better. I want to surpass him for sure.
You want to break the benchmark.
I want to break the benchmark. Yeah.
What biggest misconceptions do people have about math? Welcome back to the Thomas Botea Podcast, everybody. Today, I'm joined with a special guest and a good friend, Abhijot Randhawa. Pleasure to have you on.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so Abby is truly one of a kind. He's at the top of his class as university in his math program that he's in and is aspiring to be a pilot. He's at a 97 in university. And for those of you in Ontario universities, you know how hard that is, especially with the deflation that comes from high school marks, university marks. And today we're going to touch on a wide variety of topics stemming from math and aviation and how you could do better in math and learn from one of the experts in today's world. Stick around to the end because these are truly some insightful topics that we're going to be discussing. We're going to be having some good times too. We're going to have some laughs. We're going to have some giggles. So, just like get your water and sit down and enjoy the conversation. Kick back in your seat and we're going to have a blast. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Goal is to hit 1 million subscribers. And let's just get to 100. But before that, I just want to think about your favorite podcasts. Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, Angie Huberman. We're always learning from the guest. Let's see what we can learn from today's special guest. So, Abby, how's it going?
Good, Thomas. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing swell. Especially in today's world, we're outside in my beautiful backyard. And yeah, let's go ahead. Let's cut straight to it. So the last book you read was regarding linear algebra, right?
No, it was actually How to Prove It by Daniel J. Fellman.
And
I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but
and in your free time, you like to read these mathematics books.
I wouldn't say my free time. I guess it's just out of necessity, but also out of interest.
Yeah. So would you say because you're reading and taking the steps to learn it outside of the classroom, that's what sets you apart from the rest of your class?
Yeah, in high school I felt that was especially true because people don't really take the time to actually sit down and do math.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a misconception that math is just something that comes naturally to some people. That's something I had as well, but it's not until I sat down, tried to do more practice problems, went for the harder questions, that I realized that no one's really actually born smart. Some people might be,
Mm-hmm.
but you can actually train yourself to be a better person, both academically and ethically, morally.
How do you train yourself?
For me, it boils down to just sitting down, forcing myself to do a lot of practice problems. I basically find any book I can get my hands on.
Mm-hmm.
So that book I just talked about has some really difficult problems,
Mm-hmm.
and it related to my discrete math course, which I felt helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the harder questions actually related to stuff that came up in the exam, and also those questions really surprised some people because they were not expecting those. They didn't really sit down, trying to do.
They didn't take the time to look into it.
Yeah.
So when you read all these math books, you mentioned that you first make sure it's relevant to the course you're taking currently, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's really my motivation with these books. I don't, like I said, I'm just a normal human being. I don't sit down and just read math books for fun. But yeah, it has to relate to my course.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I don't really have a motivation to read it.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned that one of the key factors there is just sitting down and getting to the questions. So that's probably like a discipline.
Yep.
So how do you find discipline in today's world with all these distractions?
I feel like certainly we've lost a lot of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
people just don't really value sitting down and doing what they find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We've really lost a lot of our attention spans. I think, you know, if I look at my younger siblings, they can't sit down and watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be quick, it has to be snappy, and it has to be colorful, bright, and something that catches their attention for 20 seconds and then they're done.
Yeah.
I feel like we don't really need that. We need something, we need to have attention spans that can, focus down, hone in on one thing. And that also hinders, our academic performance because we don't really have this motivation to actually sit down and tackle the stuff that we need to, right? We want to sit there and do something entertaining, but that's just not how the world works. We need to actually sometimes do stuff that's boring and realize that ultimately that's what pays off in the end, not just sitting there in our bed doom scrolling.
So how do you motivate yourself to do something that seems boring to most people?
I think it boils down to just shutting my phone off and realizing that the fruits of my actions don't come now, but later. You plant a tree, right? You don't expect it to grow instantly.
Mm-hmm.
You water it every day for the next 2 or 3 years, and it grows into a nice tree, and then you eat those fruits. You don't eat them now.
Yeah.
You can't expect to sit down for 20 minutes and see, okay, I've done 20 minutes of math today. I'm a genius. That's not how it works.
Yeah, you don't eat them now.
Yeah.
That's delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Delayed gratification, especially with, Instagram and today. And what about outside of the studying? Like, what do you do outside of studying that you think pushes you to have this unfair advantage at math?
Outside of studying, I would say building this interest itself.
Yeah.
I watch these. I think there's a lot of interesting YouTube channels like 3 Blue 1 Brown, Red Potassium. Those guys, they don't present math as this just this set of rules. You do that. It's really something mystical that helps us find out a lot of things about our universe, and it breaks down that barrier of math being only for geniuses, and it helps you kind of go, oh, maybe I'm interested in that stuff. Maybe I can do that as well.
Like the YouTubers, it helps you realize there's some fun things you can extract from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, you mentioned that you were interested in starting like a math channel, possibly, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, especially because I've noticed school doesn't really help people with their studies, and I noticed that as well. High school didn't really give me a deep down understanding, a depth per se of the mathematics. It was just, here's a set of rules, here's a set of axioms. You do this, and you don't talk about it. I didn't really like that. I wanted to learn further, and so I went on YouTube. I spent hours every day reading up on it. Now I feel like I can cut down that for other people, and I want to help other people get that understanding that I worked for.
Yeah, and when he does make that, I'll link it down in the description for you guys because I think it'll be very helpful for the future. He's gonna be better than the organic chemistry tutor. Much more in depth and in depth. And yeah, what drives your passion for math, and how has it influenced your journey?
I think in high school, I remember everyone seeing me as some sort of like genius, some like really smart person.
Yeah.
But they don't really understand that I haven't always been like this. In fact, I had some of the worst marks in mathematics growing up.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't really have any hope. I actually hated the subject beyond belief.
Wow.
I was more into writing, art, but it's eventually that I realized, if they can do better, if some people that are doing good in math, if they can do good,
Yeah.
then what's stopping me?
Exactly, because it's been done before.
It's been done before, so I can do it as well.
I did want to touch on something earlier you mentioned, where you said one factor that drove you apart from the rest of the crowd was that you also put in the time outside of math classes in high school to develop that interest and put the study in and get discipline and truly lock in, as they would say, in our youth.
Yeah.
Do you think if you didn't invest outside of school, you would have been worse off just doing only what the curriculum taught you?
Yeah, I feel that's what happened. I wouldn't have had that intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like to think about math as this set of rules. You know, the deeper you go, of course, you're gonna have to think of it rigidly because math, you need to think of it rigidly or else it just doesn't work. But you still need to have that intuition for the more basic stuff, because then if you have that intuition, it makes it easier to build on top of that.
And how do you find like that love for math?
Honestly, it's just, I'm not really proud of this, but it's envy. Seeing other people doing well.
Really?
Yeah, seeing other people doing well in
Well,
math.
who were you envious of when you were like had one of the highest averages at school?
There's always a bigger fish.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a bigger fish. I'm, I might be doing well in like master, but there's kids that are, doing research at my age, working with the top mathematicians. Just because I have good grades doesn't set me apart. What sets you apart is, greater drive and a greater love for the passion. There's people who have self-studied most of the stuff we learned in first year, when they were like 6 or 7. And that's both depressing, but it also pushes you to do better.
Depressing how so? For
Because it kind of gives you I guess, an imposter syndrome. You're like, am I really fit for this if this guy was doing this when he was that young?
oh, because someone else did it at such a young age.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's just our generation because we were the young ones the entire time, but now the chess grandmaster of the world is younger than us.
Yeah.
We have Lamine Yamal in soccer. He's younger than us.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something. Like, have you always thought of it that way, or is that what you think? You're thinking that more now
So thought about what way?
when you're sort of thinking kind of enviously about someone who's 6 years old doing everything we can do now.
I think envy is not necessarily a bad thing unless you're actively going after that person and trying to work towards their demise.
I'd say maybe
I'd like
you're thinking of it as some sort of motivation because I think envy always has some sort of rooted like hatred.
I don't have a hatred for that person though. I don't hate him.
Yeah, so it's probably just
I just wanna
motivation.
I wanna do better. I wanna surpass him for sure.
You want to break the benchmark.
I wanna break the benchmark, yeah.
That statement has so much aura. You want to break the benchmark.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that in a like motivational quote anywhere. Because maybe the saying was with was it raise the pole or
Raise the bar.
Raise the bar. Yeah, break the benchmark. We made a new version of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you guys can hear all of this like nature going around us, but if you do, I think personally it brings lots of calm to my heart. Would you say that you find some sort of calm when you're doing these things you love, such as math?
I guess everyone can agree. Like when it clicks, you just get into that flow.
Like flow state.
Practice problems. Of course, I have turbulence problems, right? I'm not a genius, like I said.
You have what problems?
I have turbulent problems. Like, so what'll happen is I'll go to a lecture,
Yeah,
and it just won't make sense. So I have to go home. I have to sit down. I watch a bunch of YouTube videos. I read up on the textbook. Maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, maybe 4 a.m. It clicks, and I start doing practice problems. That's the sort of dedication you gotta have to everything you do in life. Maybe math isn't the thing for you, and I respect that. It wasn't for me, but I wanted to. It's now English that isn't the thing for me, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be, driving towards your passion. You shouldn't be wanting to surpass even the best, because that's the attitude that takes you to the top, right? I mean, even in athletics, soccer players,
mm-hmm.
They're usually the main goal is, if he's the best, I want to be better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's honestly like where I would find some motivation too, is trying to become the best because you're just trying to become better. And Adam Smith, a famous economist, said something about this.
Mm-hmm.
Is sometimes when you're acting, or actually when you're acting in your self-interest, it can actually benefit society as a whole. So that relates to this because with everyone who's trying to become the best at their field, they're adding value into the world. Like, for example, you putting in like all of those hours that takes like so much drive where it'd be so much easier to just, do anything else. It's admirable, and people have that skill for different fields. And yeah, I kind of lost my thought there, but I like the thought.
Yeah.
How do you maintain a 97 average in such a demanding field? Any study habits or routine you would like to recommend?
Study habits, I would say most people I notice, they'll just do the first few questions in the homework and then be like, yeah, I get it. I'm done.
So that's what I do. I'm guilty of that.
You need to, in fact, you should maybe do the first few and stop there, because that's where it becomes monotonous.
Yeah.
And then most textbooks, you flip to the next page, it has the harder questions. Start doing those. And if you can't, what I do when I get home is I'll open up the textbook and I'll start scanning the questions relating to the material we learned in lecture. And if I can't immediately, lay out the steps to do that problem, I'll start doing it, because that means, that's a weak spot of mine. But if I can immediately go into my flow state and say, okay, I need to do this, then I need to do that, and then I'll have my solution, it means I'm good. I can do that problem. But if not, I do that question.
So if you instantly recognize that you can solve it, you don't?
Yeah.
But what if, don't you think over time you'd lose the skill to solve it if you apply that?
For me, it works. I like, everything is subjective. Some people find highlighting their notes helps them learn.
Yeah.
It just boils down to what helps you.
Mm.
And then I guess the main objective thing would be you have to put in time. Math isn't like something you just do for 20 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're getting started. Maybe you're trying to learn it. That's all you can do. And I admire you for that. But you need to sit down and take your time. Try to do as much as you can.
So what would you say to someone who's struggling with time management for math?
I get because some people aren't majoring in math.
Yeah.
Right? Some people have different interests. Maybe you're a physics major and you just have a greater interest in physics rather than your calculus class. Or you're a computer science major and you want to devote greater time to your computer science classes rather than your discrete math class. I think, what I've noticed is that the logic and the nature of math, no matter your field, helps you create that, hardworking nature that ultimately benefits you in the long run. Time management wise, I would say you just have to do it. You have to. It doesn't matter if you lose a few hours of sleep.
Just do it.
Yeah, you have to sit down and just work towards that goal. Otherwise, you lose grip and you start to fall behind, and then suddenly it's the final, and you don't know what to do.
So for people who are struggling, the first step would simply be to just lock in and get to the desk and do it.
Watching those YouTube videos like how to get started, how to instantly become better at math, those are lies.
Those are lies.
Those are lies. You need to sit down. Just sit down and
wait. So those videos where it's like this will make you instantly better at math
it's a waste of your time.
Waste of your time.
It's a waste of your time. Think about it like this: you're watching a video on how to focus when you could be focusing. Instead of watching that video, just sit down and do your work.
You're basically procrastinating.
Yeah, you're procrastinating by thinking you're doing something useful.
So because it's a lie, would you say math is only a skill that comes with time?
Yeah. Anything is a skill that comes with time. Any skill is a skill that comes with time.
Yeah.
There's no skill that you just develop overnight.
And what about people who are already doing their homework, but they're still struggling? What would you say to someone who does have the discipline and the drive to do their homework, and let's say they're in the 80 average range? What would you say to bump them up?
That's a tough one, right? I think most people don't want to hear this. I've said this to classmates and they just don't like it.
Yeah.
Homework is never enough.
Yeah.
Teachers will never go, okay, that's the homework question I assigned them. That's going to be on the test. Maybe it'll be 1 or 2 that'll be on the test. But your teachers are always going to be looking at the hardest questions they can give you on the test. I think when you're doing your homework, your mentality should be, I'm preparing not for a test, but for the hardest exam of my life. And I want to know this so good that I can explain it to someone who's 2 years old. That's something that actually helped me a lot, was, doing the math out loud. So write down the steps, not writing down the steps, but solve the problem. And then, pretend you're explaining it to a classroom. So you go, okay, now we're going to substitute in 5. Now we're going to square this. And ultimately, it becomes ingrained into your mind and something that becomes routine to you. And so when you're on the test, it's just a matter of blurting it out. And in fact, it's not spitting it out because you remember it in the long run.
How do you remember it in the long run?
Something, I believe there's a study that if you speak out loud what you're studying, especially if you're writing it out as well, you remember it for a longer time. I'm not sure what the study was called, but I do remember reading it.
Well, that's interesting. So you're basically saying you got to do more than the homework. So is this where like the purpose of the books?
Let's say you watch a soccer player, right? Do you think that they just play the games?
No, there's extra work put in behind the scenes.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you see that smart kid in your class, they're never just doing the homework. Mm-hmm. There's always extra work behind the scenes.
So that's where the books come in, because some of them have like extra problems.
Yeah.
And well, I was going to ask if homework's not enough, where do you go? But other than the books, is there anything else other than YouTube?
There's quite a bit of online resources. I think for calculus 1, 2, and 3 so far. Yeah. There's Paul's online math notes. Mm-hmm. That guy's quite a bit of good practice problems. Mm-hmm. And they're difficult as well in that they make you think. So those are good. Mm-hmm. Other than YouTube, I think it just boils down to the books. You can go on... A lot of universities release their questions online. Yeah. So you can, enter your course. Let's say you're taking discrete math or calculus 1, and then maybe your subsection. Let's say you're learning Riemann sums. So you put in calculus 1 Riemann sums worksheet PDF online, and you would get a bunch of questions, maybe like 1,000 worksheets, and you would just do the first one.
So at the end of the day, if you were to boil it and backtrack it, it's not only discipline, but some curiosity, because you need to be willing to go out there and have the passion to search for all these extra problems.
Yeah.
And what would you say, like you mentioned, you're interested in doing a math YouTube. If you were to do this, what would set you apart than the other like mathematicians on YouTube? Like, why would people want to see your content?
Not a mathematician, first of all. Yeah. Just a first-year undergraduate. I think, first of all, what would set me apart would be my passion to help you understand the depth. Mm-hmm. Most people don't really explain the intuition. They really just teach you, okay, these are the rules. That's why I really enjoyed my discrete math course, because it was the first time we really looked at proofs. And it was like, here's a proposition, and here's the proof for that proposition. So we talked about, the exponent laws. You might accept that as true, but do you know why? I wanted to know why. I feel like that is why I didn't really enjoy my science classes as well.
Because it didn't really go into the why.
Yeah. Math is really approachable because all of the proofs, if you understand a lot of algebra, most of the stuff you learn in high school, except for calculus. Calculus is going to be quite tough. You can understand the proofs.
So what drives you to find the why and because most people would just stop there and say, oh, okay, I understand it. What drives you to say why?
I think it's just my nature. I need to know why. Mm-hmm. I remember chemistry. I didn't really like the course because I couldn't just find out why. An atom's behaving that way. We have the quantum mechanical model of the atom, but why? Teacher doesn't know why. Mm-hmm. So how am I gonna know why? Math, I need to know why because it just helps my intuition. It makes me feel more confident in the material, and I feel as though it really set me up for an undergraduate because the why helped me with a lot. First year mathematics, you switch from just doing practice problems to doing more proofs, understanding the deeper level of the stuff.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're really deep into this math conversation. I think we'll save because Abby also knows a lot of stuff and is also passionate about planes. I think we'll say that for another day because I did want to ask a really big question. Are you going to be able to handle it?
Handle what?
It's about math.
Handle the math?
I'm going to ask you a big question about math. Are you going to be able to handle it?
Oh, I mean,
what?
Let's see what you got.
What biggest misconceptions do people have about math?
I think I actually talked about this already. There's no geniuses. I mean, yeah, there are geniuses, but
like Einstein and
Einstein,
Newton.
Newton, but you still gotta, you can't expect, that only those people are the people who can do math. You can do math. Just because you're doing business management, that doesn't mean you can't sit down after you're done your homework and start doing some math in your free time. I feel like that's actually a good thing to do, and that's actually brought a lot of people towards doing an undergraduate degree in mathematics.
So are you saying that anyone, if they put the discipline in, could be good at math?
Yeah, I'm one of them. I'm not good at math. I just, enjoy it. No one's really good at math. They just have a deep passion for learning it and, knowing the why behind things. And math is one of the subjects that you can do that.
So do you think you're obviously at this like high scale, you're getting like 97's university? Do you feel complete with this, or are you still searching for more?
I still want to be better. I still feel, because there's people in my there's peers that I have that are researching with some of the top mathematicians in the country.
Yeah.
Just because I have a 97 doesn't set me apart for anything. So I feel like right now I would want to learn how to code. I know Python so far, but I would maybe try to learn R just to maybe get some sort of math internship. Because to research with a top mathematician, you got to be like crazy smart.
What do you have to do in today's world to research with the top mathematician?
Start when you're young. The person I know started when they were really young.
So basically, how you could apply that today is, today's the youngest you're ever going to be, so start now.
Yeah.
But who do you say that started young that you know?
I would prefer not to say their name.
Okay.
Just for their privacy.
But because this person started young, they're much better off?
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like that's something we can implement in our lives. Now is the best moment to do things.
Yeah, I heard somewhere it's either one day or day one.
Yeah. There's never going to be a perfect moment to start. You either sit down and start doing it, or you don't.
Yeah, wise man Theo Vaughn once said, life's never going to give you the perfect moment. You just got to just live, just get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there, before I move on to the question which spices up every conversation, is there anything else you'd like to add before I move on to the concluding question?
Not really. I would, just like to tell everyone that do what you love. And if you think you can't, you probably can. I thought I wasn't.
If you think you can't, you probably can.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. Because normally the saying is, if you think you can't, then you can't.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that motivation. Okay. Yeah. So I ask this at the end of every podcast, every guest that comes on. If you could summarize your greatest philosophical take, what would you want to tell the world in one word? What do you want to tell the world?
One word?
In one word.
Believe.
Belief.
Yeah.
Can you go into that?
Always believe that you can do better. Always believe that you can help others. Always believe that you can be a better version of yourself. There's so much to believe. And a lot of good things to believe and a lot of bad things to believe. And belief is what drives us in our lives. And so if we believe, then we can do a lot.
So believe, so faith for others, just believing.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just, believing in yourself. Sometimes it's believing in a deity. Sometimes it's believing in God. But belief is what drives human nature, and it's what brought us towards these technological advancements.
Abby Randhawa, ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.